So, if you don't know what's been happening with like Millei's overall economic plan, I'll give you like a short rundown before I get to this latest news. So Milei has had this strategy of like framing himself as like this fiscally responsible libertarian, but I mean, that's not a thing that exists at all. So what he actually did was basically middle and upper middle class populism and upper class populism. This is something that was done in Argentina before in the 90s, where the peso was pegged to the dollar 1-to-1 by the government propping it up with dollar reserves until the bubble burst and there was a massive economic crisis after about 10 years of that. Eventually, you run out of dollars to prop up the currency. Milei has been doing his own version of that, just not being 1-to-1. Millei's like electoral strategy to maintain support was basically first he sells off like a ton of government assets to generate currency reserves, which he then uses to prop up the currency and its value relative to like the US dollar and other international currencies. That means that the currency became more valuable if you were like importing goods from abroad, for example, or you're like buying like a computer or something or a car or something that has to be imported. Which is like this middle class populism where people who have the disposable income to buy imported things suddenly can buy a lot more stuff than they used to, like a phone or something ordered from Amazon or whatever, because the currency is now comparatively worth more in the international market than it was before. But the cost of this was that he had to sell a ton of state assets off to fund that. And then he gets this influx of cash from doing that. And also like, just cutting the budget in general. And then he gets this influx of cash from that, which he then uses to artificially prop up the currency. So very much not libertarian. He also printed a ton of money, by the way. Milei printed more money, funnily enough, during his own presidency than the previous government did in the same time frame. So this was funded by the selling off of like extremely favorable Argentine government bonds to international investors, which is also going to be a bubble that bursts in the future and it's going to fuck everything up. He also then took out a huge IMF loan, uses the money to keep subsidizing the currency for this sort of populism to make like international trips cheaper for the middle class and stuff who can afford to do that sort of thing. And now he's in trouble because the midterm elections are coming up. And the money for that is already wearing out again. The billion, 10 billion, 20 billion, whatever it was, $1 billion IMF loan that he used to prop the currency is already running out. So now Javier Milei is getting a fucking bailout from the US government in an attempt to keep his currency exchange rate populism going just long enough to survive the midterms. Then who the fuck knows what's going to happen after that? Because the last time a government in Argentina did this sort of thing, it took 10 years, but there was a massive economic explosion in 2001 as a result of this sort of incredible focus on just maintaining a favorable international exchange rate to make international products cheaper for the middle class who have disposable income to buy them. So now he's getting a massive bailout from the Trump government, which is comical. Like Trump himself pretends to be against public spending, obviously is not. But Milei does that even so much more than Trump ever has. Milei calls himself a libertarian. And here he is, straight up just getting bailouts, putting the government in debt for the sake of artificially keeping the currency way higher value than it organically ever would be. $20 billion bailout from the USA. Incredible, right? This is concurrent with Milei reinstituting, after barely a year of having them in place, currency controls in Argentina. Something that he said, he would, one of his campaign goals was to make the exchange rate free, allow you to swap money freely for dollars at the market rate and stuff. But he manipulated the market rate to the point where now it's so unsustainable that Milei has announced that the open currency exchange market is being closed. The government is going back to controlling the currency exchange market again, something that he previously said he would never do because he's a libertarian. This is an article about restrictions on the dollar coming back. And from today being 26th of September, a rule was reinstated that limits the buying and selling of, there we go, finally translated, buying and selling of foreign exchange between the official and financial markets. And this is something that this government said they were specifically against. And now they have fucked up so much that they are reinstituting the policies of the previous government. Apparently they're finding out why they existed in the first place. So they're kind of doing it for different reasons. They're doing it for more because their attempt to prop up the currency for populist reasons with middle class populism didn't work at all. And They're basically just trying to keep the economy afloat long enough to win the midterm elections. And this is, as I went over a month ago on my channel, this is coming after it came out that Mille's sister, who manages his finances, was receiving massive kickbacks and is currently being investigated by the police for basically getting bribed to award government contracts to specific companies. So yeah, looks like libertarianism didn't work in the end. It's literally collapsing. Like his entire strategy is collapsing 2 years in already. He recently lost a really important election in the province of Buenos Aires very badly, despite him personally campaigning there on the part of his allies. So I don't know. The tide might be turning back against him in Argentina. There were rumors that Milei was thinking of, credible rumors coming from his inner circle, filtering stuff to the media, that Mille was thinking about resigning, which is also very interesting. As of yet, obviously, nothing's come through in that respect, but things are not going very well in Argentina in spite of the idiot international media having said so, as if they are for a very long time. Because this is how neoliberalism always works. Neoliberalism involves like a sudden mass influx of state assets from sell-offs, from cutting budgets and stuff like that. But then that money runs out and then things get bad. Happens every time, but usually the cuts also cause immediate suffering. Make no mistake, obviously, cutting social services, public spending, that also causes immediate suffering. But the total economic collapse, that comes a little bit later. And we're starting to see that phase beginning already in Argentina, which is interesting because the last time they did this in Argentina, it took about 10 years for this sort of phase to begin. Like Milei's literally speedrunning the Menem collapse, which is not good at all. Unless you just want to see people suffer, then I guess it's kind of good. Maybe Argentines deserve it. Who knows? You guys tell me in the comments down below.